The stars twinkled coldly in the vast emptiness of space as the Confederation cruiser dropped out of hyperspace near Earth's orbit. Inside the command deck, Ambassador Taiho adjusted his translator, his blue skin reflecting the glow of Earth. On the view screen, after centuries of monitoring this backwater planet, the Galactic Confederation had finally run out of options. The Void Collective had pushed them to the brink of extinction. "Are we truly this desperate?" Captain Dory asked, her four eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of deep concern among her species. "The High Council voted," Taiho replied simply. "Earth is our last resort." Below on Earth, President Lee stood at her office window watching the night sky. The alien ship had been detected hours ago, causing global panic. Military forces worldwide remained on high alert, but so far the visitors had made no hostile moves. Her secure phone rang. "Madam President, they're requesting to land. They say they come in peace and need our help." 2 days later, in a hastily prepared conference room at the United Nations, leaders from around the world sat in stunned silence as Ambassador Taiho finished his presentation. Holographic images of destroyed worlds and fleeing refugee ships hung in the air. "The Void Collective has consumed 62 civilizations," Taiho explained. "They do not negotiate. They do not stop. For 300 years we have fought and lost." "Why come to us?" President Lee asked. "You've clearly been watching Earth for centuries. You know we haven't even colonized our own moon properly." Taiho's thin lips formed what might have been a smile. "Precisely. You are unexpected. The Void anticipates our tactics now. Your species thinks differently." Defense Minister Kim leaned forward. "So we're cannon fodder?" "No," Taiho said firmly. "You would have advanced technology, training. We offer knowledge in exchange for soldiers, engineers, and tacticians." The room erupted in heated debate. Some nations wanted nothing to do with an alien war. Others saw opportunity in the advanced technology being offered. A few worried this was merely the first step in Earth's conquest. After the meeting, President Lee found herself alone with Taiho in a small side room. "You haven't told us everything," she said. Taiho's four-fingered hand reached into his robe and activated a small device. A hologram appeared, a star chart showing thousands of worlds. "This was the Confederation 500 years ago," he said. Then the image changed, showing barely 100 systems. "This is what remains." President Lee studied the alien's face. "You're not just losing, you've already lost, haven't you?" "Not yet," Taiho said softly. "But soon, without help." 3 weeks later, the first human volunteers boarded Taiho's ship. Among them was Colonel Jun, a veteran combat engineer who had fought in conflicts across Earth. As the massive ship accelerated away from Earth, Jun floated in the observation dome, watching his home planet shrink to a blue dot. Next to him floated Taiho. "What makes you think we can succeed where your people have failed for centuries?" Jun asked. "Your history," Taiho replied. "Humans adapt faster than any species we've encountered. You turn weaknesses into strengths. You improvise." Jun laughed. "We also fight among ourselves constantly." "Perhaps that too will prove useful," Taiho said. "The Confederation races have been united so long we've forgotten how to think like enemies." As Earth disappeared from view, an alarm blared throughout. The ship. Captain Dory's voice came over the comms. "Ambassador, void ships detected in Sector 9. They've found us." Taiho's eyes widened in horror. "Impossible. They couldn't know about Earth yet." The ship shuddered as something struck its shields. Colonel Jun grabbed a handhold as gravity briefly failed. "Take us to the bridge," he ordered. "If we're going to fight, I want to see what we're up against." On the bridge, chaos reigned as crew members rushed to battle stations. The view screen showed 3 black ships shaped like jagged thorns approaching rapidly. "Void Scouts," Captain Dory explained. "If they report back about Earth." Jun studied the enemy formation. "Your weapons?" "Energy-based," Taiho replied. "But void ships absorb most directed energy." Jun nodded slowly, a plan forming. "Do you have anything that creates electromagnetic pulses? And can your shields handle a close-range detonation? The aliens exchanged confused looks. Yes, but... Good, Jun interrupted. Fly straight at them. That's suicide, Captain Dory protested. Jun smiled grimly. Exactly. They won't expect it. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. After a moment of hesitation, Taeho nodded to the captain. Do as he says. As their ship accelerated toward the enemy, Jun realized the war had already begun, and humanity's contribution would be more vital than even the aliens suspected. The massive Confederation space station loomed like a shining wheel against the darkness. Inside, Colonel Jun and the first human contingent stared in awe at the thousands of alien species bustling through the main concourse. Some walked on tentacles, others floated in anti-gravity harnesses, and many had anatomies the humans couldn't begin to comprehend. Welcome to Harmony Station, Taeho said. Your new home. The humans were assigned cramped quarters in a distant sector. The air smelled strange. The artificial gravity felt slightly off, and the food, synthesized to match Earth nutrition, tasted like bland paste. On their first day of training, Commander Jiwoo led the human soldiers to the combat simulation deck. A tall insect-like alien named General Hanto waited for them, surrounded by trainers from 7 different species. So these are the primitive savages who will save us all. Hanto clicked through his translator. How disappointing. Jiwoo stepped forward. We're here to help, not to be insulted. Hanto's compound eyes glittered. Help? Your species hasn't even mastered interplanetary travel. What could you possibly teach war? Ryers who have fought the void for centuries. Maybe that's why we'll win, Jiwoo replied calmly. We don't know what's impossible yet. The training began brutally. Humans struggled with alien weapons designed for different body types. The simulators ran at speeds that left them dizzy and disoriented. Confederation battle doctrine seemed needlessly complex and rigid to the human soldiers. After 2 weeks, frustration ran high. In the mess hall, Engineer Minji slammed her hand on the table. Their technology is amazing, but their tactics are terrible. They do everything by the book, a book the enemy memorized centuries ago. Jiwoo nodded. I noticed that too. They've been fighting so long they've forgotten how to adapt. That night the humans gathered secretly. They began modifying their training equipment, making small but crucial changes to suit human physiology. They practiced their own combat formations when the alien instructors weren't watching. General Hanto discovered their unauthorized modifications a week later. He stormed into the human barracks flanked by security drones. This is sabotage, he hissed. You've altered military equipment without permission. Jiwoo stood her ground. We've improved it. The plasma rifle now has a recoil dampener. The targeting system works with human depth perception. Confederation regulations state, regulations won't matter if we're all dead, Minji interrupted. Your regulations haven't won this war. Ambassador Taeho arrived before the situation could escalate further. After examining the modifications, he looked at the humans with new interest. I've never seen anyone repurpose Confederation tech this way, he admitted. Show me more. Over the following days, Taeho brought engineers from various species to observe the human innovations. Some scoffed, but others began asking questions, testing the humans' ideas. In the combat simulator, Jiwoo's team finally scored their first victory against the alien instructors by ignoring standard tactics and splitting their squad into unpredictable patterns. General Hanto watched with narrow eyes but said nothing. You broke formation, one instructor complained afterward. We adapted to the situation, Jiwoo explained. The Void expects you to maintain perfect formations. That's why they always know where to strike. That evening, as humans celebrated their small victory, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors. All personnel to battle stations. Void scouts detected in the system. This is not a drill. The humans rushed to their assigned posts. Through viewport windows, they saw Confederation ships forming into precise geometric patterns, just like in the simulations. They're doing it again, Minji whispered. The same tactics that always fail. Before they could react, 3 small, void ships appeared from nowhere, slicing through the perfect Confederation formation. A nearby cruiser exploded in silent flame. In the command center, panic spread as officers shouted contradictory orders. General Hanto attempted to restore discipline, but the battle was already turning into a rout. Jiwoo pushed her way to the tactical display. "Ambassador Taiho, let us help." Taiho hesitated only briefly before nodding. "General, give the humans communications access." "Absolutely not," Hanto protested. "They have no combat experience against the void." Another explosion lit up the viewport. Taiho's voice hardened. "They will soon, whether we planned it or not." As Jiwoo took the communication station, she glanced at her fellow humans. None of them had expected to face real combat so soon, but in their eyes, she saw not fear, but determination. "All human personnel," she broadcast. "Conventional tactics aren't working. Time for planned chaos." The emergency lights bathed the command center in an eerie red glow as Jiwoo quickly explained planned chaos to the bewildered Confederation officers. It went against everything they'd been taught about proper space combat. "Scatter the fleet. No formations. Random movements only," she instructed. General Hanto clicked his mandibles in outrage. "Madness. Our ships must maintain formation to coordinate. Shield harmonics, which is exactly why the void always wins," Jiwoo countered. "They've studied your patterns for centuries." Ambassador Taiho raised a hand for silence. "Let them try. We have nothing to lose." Lieutenant Minho's voice crackled over the comms from one of the smaller Confederation ships where several humans had been stationed. "Ready to implement human tactics, Commander." "All human-advised vessels," Jiwoo broadcast. "Break formation. Now. Use unpredictable vectors and maintain radio silence except for emergency signals." On the tactical display, 5 Confederation ships suddenly veered off in different directions. The void vessels, sleek and black like obsidian knives, seemed momentarily confused by the change. They had been slicing through the geometrically perfect Confederation formation with practiced precision. Now their targets were scattering like startled fish. "They're hesitating," Minji observed, pointing at the display. "They don't know which ships to pursue." The void vessels regrouped, then split to chase individual targets. This was exactly what Jiwoo had hoped for. "Phase 2, she ordered. "Minho, now!" Lieutenant Minho's ship abruptly cut its engines and spun on its axis, facing directly toward its pursuer. This maneuver, which human pilots called the dead stop, was considered suicidal in conventional space combat. The pursuing void ship, not expecting its prey to suddenly halt, overshot the target. "Fire everything," Minho shouted. His ship's weapons, hastily modified by human engineers, unleashed a barrage not at the void vessel's heavily armored front, but at its more vulnerable rear sections. The black ship shuddered as hits connected. In the command center, even General Hanto fell silent as they watched the tactical display. One void ship was now damaged, its movements erratic. "All ships implementing human tactics," Jiwoo continued. "Execute random jump-and-fire sequences. No patterns." The human-advised ships began performing a series of short, unpredictable jumps, firing at different angles each time. The void vessels, accustomed to targeting predictable formations, struggled to track their targets. "It's working," Taiho whispered in disbelief. Minho's damaged void target suddenly exploded in a brilliant flash. Cheers erupted through the command center, quickly silenced as the battle continued. The remaining void ships, facing an enemy they could no longer predict, attempted to retreat. But 2 more Confederation vessels, copying Minho's maneuver, managed to score critical hits. Within minutes, all 3 void scouts had been destroyed. No Confederation ships were lost after the humans took control. As the emergency lights faded, back to normal. Stunned silence filled the command center. 300 years of continuous defeat. And now, victory. "How?" General Hanto finally asked, his voice subdued. "How did you know this would work?" Jiwoo looked at the tactical display, where the debris of void ships now floated harmlessly. "Humans have been fighting other humans for our entire history. When your enemy knows all your moves, you have to become unpredictable. Ambassador Taiho approached Jiwoo, his expression solemn. You've given us something we had forgotten, hope. The news spread quickly throughout Harmony Station. Human soldiers, previously shunned and mocked, now found themselves surrounded by curious aliens asking questions about Earth's military history. Even General Hanto, though still skeptical, ordered his staff to study human tactics. In her quarters that night, Jiwoo met with Minho and the other human officers. Their victory, while significant, was small in the grand scheme of the war. They'll adapt, Minho warned. The Void will analyze what happened today and prepare countermeasures. Then we'll need to keep changing our approach, Jiwoo replied. That's the advantage humans have always had. We evolve faster than our enemies can predict. As they spoke, news arrived from Earth. Thousands more human volunteers were preparing to join the fight. The first victory had ignited something powerful, not just among the aliens, but among humanity itself. The real war was just beginning. 3 months after the first victory against the Void Scouts, Harmony Station hummed with new energy. The human contingent had grown from a few hundred to over 5,000, and their influence spread through the Confederation military like wildfire. Dr. Nari, a human neuroscientist, stood before the Confederation Science Council, her presentation causing murmurs of disbelief among the assembled aliens. Human brains process fear differently, she explained, pointing to neural scans projected above the table. When faced with danger, our adrenal response can actually enhance decision-making, rather than hinder it. An octopoid scientist waved several tentacles dismissively. Impossible. Fear exists to trigger flight, not improve combat function. Not for humans, Dr. Nari countered. Our species evolved as both predator and prey. We've learned to harness fear as fuel. Meanwhile, in a distant star system, Lieutenant Minho led a mixed human-alien squad aboard a Confederation cruiser. They'd been hunting void patrols for weeks using tactics no Confederation commander would have approved before. Hiding in asteroid fields, shutting down all systems to drift undetected, then ambushing enemy vessels from unexpected vectors. Contact, called the sensor operator. 3 void ships emerging from jump. Minho studied the tactical display. They're using our techniques now. Random approach patterns, no formation. The aliens on the bridge looked nervous. The Void was adapting. Good, Minho said with a grim smile. That means we're hurting them. Time for the next evolution. Launch. The drones. Hundreds of small, unmanned craft burst from the cruiser's launch tubes. Each carried minimal weaponry but generated energy signatures identical to larger ships. A human innovation that had taken Confederation engineers just weeks to implement. The Void vessels hesitated, suddenly facing what appeared to be a fleet rather than a single cruiser. They're scanning the drones, reported the communications officer. They can't tell which signals are real. Now we attack from 3 sides at once, Minho ordered. Back at Harmony Station, Commander Jiwoo addressed the Confederation War Council. The chamber, designed for formal presentations, now looked like a human war room. Holographic maps displayed across tables, scenarios running on multiple screens, officers arguing passionately over tactics. The Void operates like a hive mind, Jiwoo explained. They share information instantly across their fleet. We can use that against them. General Hanto, once their fiercest critic, now listened attentively. How? By feeding them false information. If one Void ship observes a tactic, all Void ships learn to counter it. So we deliberately use failing tactics in minor engagements to make them adapt wrongly for major battles. Word of human successes spread through the Confederation. Species that had resigned themselves to eventual extinction now volunteered ships and soldiers. The tide was turning. In his private chambers, Ambassador Taiho reviewed the latest battle reports with mixed feelings. Human tactics had achieved more in 3 months than Confederation strategies had in decades. But some Confederation elders were growing concerned about humanity's growing influence. They're too unpredictable, an elder had complained in the last council meeting. Today they fight for us, tomorrow, who knows? Taiho's contemplation was interrupted by a priority alert. He activated his communication panel to see Jiwoo's grim face. Ambassador, we've intercepted void communications. They've discovered Earth's location. Taiho felt cold dread spread through his body. How? Our security protocols were designed by the Confederation, Jiwoo replied. The void knows how to bypass them. A battle group is already on its way to our solar system. How many? Ships? All of them. They're committing their entire fleet to destroy humanity before we can spread more of our tactics. Taiho slumped in his chair. The void had never concentrated their forces like this before. Always, they had been cautious, methodical. They fear you, he realized. In all these centuries, they've never feared us, but they fear humans. Jiwoo nodded solemnly. We need to get back to Earth. Now. The blue-green orb of Earth hung in space, surrounded by the largest collection of ships ever assembled. The Confederation had sent everything they had, thousands of vessels from hundreds of species, to defend humanity's homeworld. At their center was the flagship Endurance, where Commander Jiwoo and Ambassador Taiho watched the tactical display with grim determination. Void fleet emerging from hyperspace in 5 minutes, announced the sensor officer. Jiwoo turned to face the mixed crew of humans and aliens. We've prepared for this. Every ship knows their role. Remember, unpredictability is our strength, as I predicted. The void arrived with overwhelming force. A swarm of black ships that seemed to absorb the very starlight around them. Their formation was unlike anything the Confederation had seen before. Chaotic, random, adopting human tactics. They've learned, Taiho observed quietly. We counted on that, Jiwoo replied. Admiral Kyo, execute Phase 1. The Confederation fleet scattered in all directions, appearing to panic. The void ships pursued eagerly, breaking into smaller groups to chase down what they perceived as easy targets. Aboard his small command vessel, Admiral Kyo, a veteran Confederation officer who had embraced human strategies, gave the signal. Suddenly, hundreds of ships that had appeared to flee now spun around and charged directly at their pursuers. Other vessels emerged from hiding places behind Earth's moon, and in the shadow of orbiting debris, the space around Earth erupted in weapon fire. No battle in the Long War had ever been this intense or chaotic. Ships exploded on both sides as the void struggled to counter tactics they couldn't predict. On the Endurance, Minji rushed onto the bridge. Commander, we've analyzed the void communication patterns. There's a central node coordinating all their ships. Where? Jiwoo demanded. Minji pointed to a sector near the rear of the void fleet. That command ship there. Our human pattern recognition algorithms detected a subtle difference in its transmission frequency. For centuries, the Confederation had assumed the void operated as a true hive mind without central control. This discovery changed everything. If we destroy that ship, Taiho began, we might disrupt their entire fleet, Jiwoo finished. But reaching it would be suicide. Admiral Kyo's voice came through the comms. Not suicide. Sacrifice. Before anyone could respond, Kyo's ship and 24 others broke formation, forming a tight wedge aimed directly at the void command vessel. They accelerated to maximum speed, weapons firing continuously to clear a path. On the tactical display, Jiwoo watched as ship after ship in Kyo's group winked out, destroyed by void defenses. But they were getting closer. Their shields are failing, Minji reported, monitoring Kyo's flagship. Admiral Kyo's final transmission came through clearly, for Earth for all our worlds. His ship, engines overloading, slammed into the void command vessel. The explosion rippled outward, engulfing nearby ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like puppets with cut strings, void ships everywhere began drifting aimlessly. Some continued firing but without coordination or purpose. Others simply shut down completely. It worked, Taiho whispered in awe. The central node was their weakness. In the hours that followed, The combined fleet methodically eliminated the remaining void forces. For the first time in 300 years, the Confederation had won a decisive victory. 1 month later, the Confederation High Council convened in its grand chamber. Humans now sat among its members as equals, something unimaginable a year earlier. Commander Jiwoo, now promoted to Admiral, addressed the assembly. The war isn't over. Void remnants still exist in distant sectors. But today we begin rebuilding. Ambassador Taiho stepped forward. The Confederation survived because we finally understood our greatest strength wasn't technological superiority or military might. It was diversity of thought. Humans taught us that different perspectives aren't weaknesses to overcome, but advantages to embrace. As the council session ended, Jiwoo stood at a viewport overlooking Earth. Other species now visited freely, exchanging ideas and culture. Confederation ships modified with human innovations patrolled the system alongside Earth vessels. "What happens now?" asked Minji, joining her at the window. Jiwoo smiled. "Now we explore the galaxy together, not as saviors or savages, but as equals." In the vastness of space, the Confederation and humanity moved forward as partners, different in form and thought, but united in purpose. The legacy of humanity wasn't just winning a war, but transforming how an entire galaxy understood. Strength, the end.